Live from the Clarity from Chaos studios, heard worldwide, it's Dave Campbell. On every episode, Dave and his guests explore, discuss, and work on solutions to some of life's biggest challenges. So, if you're ready, be prepared to be enlightened, amused, and even shocked by what you hear. And now, the real, the authentic, the one and only Dave Campbell.
Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Clarity from Chaos. I'm your host, Dave Campbell. If you're new to the show and like what you hear, hit the subscribe button on my podcast website at Substack. The site address is dkc051952.substack.com. But before we get into this edition of Clarity, I would like to share a few thoughts about our republic. The republic that we live in is a rare and beautiful idea, one that has been nurtured and protected since its inception by the lives of thousands of patriots. We now stand on the precipice and watch daily a group of people trying desperately to destroy our country. But this threat is not a political one, it's a spiritual one. And believe it or not, it's just as simple as good versus evil. The radicals who are hell-bent on destroying our country are doing so because it was founded on a Judeo-Christian idea, and they cannot stand it. So we need to stop thinking in terms of Democrat, Republican, global elites, and corporate media as adversaries and start thinking of the entire problem as biblical. We need to bring the church and the Bible back into our lives. We need to defeat this threat spiritually. The people we elect need to answer to a higher authority and not to the puppet masters that they answer to today. So with that, I would like to share a Bible verse and then a prayer before we move on with our guest. The verse is from Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Jesus Christ. So now let us pray. God, I thank you for protecting us. We are never alone. You always go before us, guiding our steps even when darkness comes into our stories. Your light is always greater. You are forever making beauty from the ashes of this world. Thank you for always being with me, and I declare that I can have peace tonight because you are my shield, my fortress, my shadow, and my refuge. I can rest easy because I know your angels are set around me, offering me protection when I need it. Calm my thoughts and help me to meditate on the comforting picture of your feathered wings covering my home tonight. Let your faithfulness be my shield, and I ask for a long life in which you show me the glory of your salvation. Help me to trust that you are my safe place, and let your peace rest on me and my home. I thank you, Lord, for this. Amen. We're incredibly pleased to welcome back to Clarity the author of best-selling books, The DNA of Democracy and Shadows of the Acropolis, Mr. Richard Lyons. Welcome back.
Well, thank you, David. Very nice opening.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to start our discussion with what's basically been on our minds, I guess you would say, Richard, and that would be around the First Amendment. There's been a lot of, ever since the passing of Charlie Kirk, there's been a lot of nasty, ugly things said, and they always use the First Amendment as a backdrop that, they can get away with a lot of this. And I'd like your thoughts around it because to me, the First Amendment does offer those abilities, but it doesn't come with apparently accountability or responsibility or, for God's sake, consequences about what you say.
Yeah, I think when the founders were discussing a freedom of speech, they thought a person's freedom would be cast inside a virtuous community. so
Yeah,
that if somebody said
exactly.
outrageous things, I mean, some of the things are just horrific where they're, praising an assassin and so forth. There would be a community and a community would react saying, "You
Yeah,
can't be serious. I
right.
mean, where are you from that you think this way?" And I think you hit it on the head when you started the show. And that is, there is this element in our country, and it does have its roots in socialism. And the socialists in this country got so far under Obama, and we saw it with the weaponization of agencies and so forth. And then Trump got elected. So the socialists had nowhere to go. And when socialists do not achieve their aims politically or through regulation or through the legal system, they get violent. They act out in ways, and you can see it historically, whether it was the Bolsheviks who did not win politically, they won by making Russia a bloodbath, or Mussolini who did not win politically, he killed his political opponents. This is what socialism does. And if you look at Maduro or you look at Castro, it's all the same thing. It's tyranny. And they call it socialism nowadays. What it is the government controlling everything, including every citizen, taking everything you have, having a right to do that, and taking it for themselves. And so if they cannot do it politically or economically, they do it violent.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me around to the flag burning, Richard. And see, I'm not quite, forgive me, I'm not a legal scholar or constitutional scholar, but I do not understand how burning the flag is okay with the blanket of the First Amendment. I'm not quite sure how I get there with
I think
stating that I can. Yeah, go ahead.
textually, you're correct. There's no part of the Constitution that says you can burn an American flag, nor was there anything that says you can tear down statues of American heroes or that you can spit on the history of America.
Right.
I think in a free society, you have to, in any society that has ever existed, you have the society tends to become polar opposites, right? It's just throughout, it's in human nature. When you have someone who's a positive, you have someone who's a negative. The greatest thing about our country, if I might say so, David, and it goes straight to our founding, are five different systems which reconcile society, which reconcile our society. And you pointed out one right at the top. Judeo Christian ethos is probably the finest ethos in human history for bringing people together. And I think it's why socialism has such a problem with it, because socialism is trying to correct through violence and through authoritarianism what Judeo Christianity heals and reconciles voluntarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we treat each other very well, and the rich help the poor and educate the poor and many other things. And all the basis of the Christian churches is all about
Right.
charity and
Yeah.
education.
Yeah. And unfortunately now, the churches are under attack. I mean, they were under attack in the last administration. Now there's violence being perpetrated against the churches, and not only domestically, Richard, across the globe. You see the mass slaughter of Christians in, I believe, Nigeria. It's across the globe, and I just personally really feel that what's going on has bridged the silliness of red versus blue, or the global elites trying to consolidate everything around so that they're in charge, and all of the Benjamins come through them, and they get to throw the loaf of bread over the wall to the peasants.
That's
and
what they
and
want. It's
yeah,
well put.
exactly. That's exactly where they're trying to go. And what worries me, and the reason that I've taken this shift, Richard, is because, to me, the way we start turning the Queen Mary is to get it back a little bit closer to the founding thoughts and ideas. Not that they were perfect or anything else, but I think we've gone pretty far afield from where we really were. And people can argue it one way or the other, but I think the basis of it, quite frankly, is the basis of our laws and everything else.
Yes, and again, I think you're perfectly correct. And the left takes advantage of our founding and expects that all human beings, right, that we assume the founders were perfect and anything they did wrong, of course,
Yeah.
denounces denounces the Constitution, denounces all the sacrifices, as you mentioned, of hundreds of thousands of Americans who sacrificed not only for our Constitution, but also for writing the Constitution in the Civil War, and also for liberating other countries to enjoy freedom in the world wars and so forth. And again, the socialists need socialism to be God. And if you want their authoritarianism to work, they have to dismantle us from our Constitution. And they have to make our sacrifices unheard of. They cannot mention, that Grant went through the Wilderness Campaign, tens of thousands of Union soldiers literally burned alive in the wilderness who were wounded in that battle. They don't mention that. Those soldiers were fighting for the freedom of another race. They fought, died for that. That is unexampled, David, in human history. Never happened any time ever. And the more that your program is on and other programs like it, they can educate the American public who has, we have one of the worst education systems in the world right now for what we
Well,
pay.
yeah, we don't teach social studies anymore. We don't correctly teach history anymore because we're afraid of insulting somebody or the whole issue around identity politics. We've gotten ourselves to the point where we're changing mascots on sports teams
Right.
because we fear that we're making a particular group uncomfortable. Um,
Yes.
the socialists. I'll give them a big hat tip. They've done one hell of a marketing campaign. One hell of a marketing
Well, they
campaign.
really do. They are top. They are excellent at that. They paint persons who are successful, who work all their lives, right, to be successful, literally laboring 10 and 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. My father was one of those guys. I tend to work a lot. But okay, so you have somebody who's labored all their lives and have built something, and here comes an athlete who's speaking against the country, who's making $100 billion for playing a game. Yet their vilification of a guy who's worked all of his life is carried, and the praise of the athlete is unquestioned. Well,
Yeah,
he must be right. He's an athlete.
right. Well, I'll take it a step further, Richard, and then I'll get back to my thoughts around what we were going to talk about tonight. But it's something as simple as it's like The View. People can watch what they want to watch, but I have a real hard time appreciating, I guess, an audience clapping and cheering for some of the moronic statements that are made on these TV shows. And what worries me is these people, and you mentioned it a minute ago, through education or whatever, have the inability apparently to connect the dots or to have any kind of fashion of critical thinking around what's being said. And it worries me that if you take that and extrapolate it across the country, that you have the Democrat Party. You have all of these people believing this horse shit and nobody questioning it.
Yeah, I think you're correct generally, but in that I think very correct. And it goes to the education system, and the Democratic Party by design has owned education since the LBJ Great Society was initiated. When they took control of all the dollars, took control with their unions, and then under Obama completed the coup by making sure that everyone who gets a loan for a college education gets that through the government, and it's controlled by the Democrat Party. So it's been very, very thorough. In regard to The View, and this is something I happen to know, having had something to do with the television industry. They select their audience very carefully,
Well, I'm
and they
sure
know
they do.
exactly who they are. And then they say, look, when we raise this sign, applause, let's hear it,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
prep for the show so
Yeah.
that and again, it goes to exactly what you said. It's the marketing. And this markets the View as being somehow some sort of priesthood, when in fact, I mean, their combined IQ might be around 52.
Yeah. Yeah. I really have to question it.
Yeah.
And I apologize for getting kind of far afield here, Richards, but I'd like to come back to I watched a pretty interesting bit on the Constitution today, and it was around the speech and debate clause
Yeah.
and its inception and how it relates to what we were talking about originally about freedom of speech and the First Amendment. And the original idea around the protections of speech and debate was to protect speech and debate within the halls of Congress. Um, they didn't, they wanted the free idea, the idea flow and conversation to carry on. But what you have now is you have people like Adam Schiff and other members of Congress making statements in committee or what that are complete lies and have been proven to be complete lies, but they are protected by Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution, which in watching this video doesn't really protect them because Congress, either the legislative or either the House or the Senate, can react to it. They can do something about it. They can even take it to expulsion, but they fail to do so.
Well, they have both the Senate and the House have their own rules, and they do so constitutionally. And they have remedies like censure and expulsion and suspension and things like this. I think the other remedy that might be looked into with regard to, I'll call him Mr. Schiff because I don't think he deserves his position. The other remedy of Trump, particularly, is to sue him for libel and slander because of the lies he told in an official capacity, for heaven's sakes. And that
Yeah,
ought to carry
exactly.
a greater, he ought to be able to break him financially
Yeah.
by
Well,
doing.
yeah. I mean, you have that, and you have like the J6 committee, right? Which, yeah,
Lovely.
yeah. I mean, a remarkable, high standard of the human condition there. Of course, they all got pardons. At least we think they got pardons because we're not quite sure at this point who signed the pardons.
Yeah, that's
But
another interesting,
yeah,
unconstitutional act.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and it just kind of seems to go on and on, Richard, about the lack of accountability and responsibility. So, which kind of brings me to my question and your thoughts around, Trump has deployed the National Guard to the district, cleaned it up. Now he's got the ongoing fight in Portland, Chicago, and Memphis, and an ongoing fight in Los Angeles. Your thoughts around that?
Well, it's a little convoluted because they've made it so. The Democrats during the Biden presidency acted outside the law by allowing literally the invasion of this country by 20 million people. These are not nice people, and they also set up sanctuary cities all around the country. What has that done? It has made a systematic drug cartel and gang cartel in our country, and they are untouchable. When you have a no bail system, when you're letting criminals out of prisons, they did that too, right? When you let all this mayhem loose, you are ignoring the first line in our Constitution, which has to do with we the people establish this Constitution for the domestic welfare of the citizens, for peace and tranquility. It's the first line. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think I'm getting it word for word. It's the first line. It's also mimicked in every state constitution.
Right.
Illinois
Yep.
has a line just like it, so does California. But the Democrats have turned the law inside out. They have allowed persons from outside our country who are not citizens to have protections that even our citizens don't. And when they are protected like that, they can commit murder, assault, rape. They can loot cities. I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars have been looted from our cities. And all these retailers, which are employers as well, have moved out, literally moved out. So how are you helping your own citizens? As the mayor of Chicago, as the governor of Illinois, how are you helping when you go down Michigan Avenue and all the stores are empty and
Yeah,
all
I,
that's
I
left
don't.
is homeless?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know how people continue to vote. You've got the mayor of Chicago. It baffles me how he got elected and how he stayed elected.
Yeah, I'm from Chicago, and I thought Lori Lightfoot, his predecessor, had to be the bottom. That had to be the very
I don't
bottom.
think so. I don't think
No,
so, man.
just when you think my city isn't going to stand for another host like this, then they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And these two persons, the mayor and Pritzker, the governor, are turning Chicago into a hellhole. There are areas in Chicago. I knew a third generation policeman. His grandfather had to talk him into putting in his badge because he said, "Listen, I care about you, and nothing good can happen when you go
Wow.
into a situation. Either you're going to be sued, or you're going to be jailed, or you're going to be dead,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there is no backup." The Chicago Police Department is not backed up by the mayor, not backed up by the governor. And so Trump is going in by his authority as commander in chief and recognizing the first line in the Constitution and says, I need to take care of those people. I'm assigned to it. He's the chief law enforcement officer
Right.
of the country, and
Yep.
he has to do what he has to do. So you have these gangs and cartels living it up in the middle of these cities with the protection of the administration and the administration of the city and the governor of the state, by being designated a sanctuary city. And they're running prostitution rings, enslavement rings, drug rings, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it makes me wonder, Richard, if Trump's actually going to involve the Insurrection Act. And then, I think that, that act, if he comes forward with it, gives him the ability to do any damn thing he wants to federally, right? In protection of the citizenry. But the other part of that also comes with the accountability to the Pritzkers and the mayor and the other people that are actually running cover for all of this, right? Because I think he can use the Insurrection Act as the basis for handcuffing them.
Well, I think a good start to that, David, was when they recognized that Antifa is a terrorist organization in America. So if you have Antifa operating in the city of Chicago, that is insurrection. It's a terrorist insurrection. I think he'll be challenged in lower courts. I think he already has, but it'll march up through the appeals process and maybe get to the Supreme Court. But somebody has to apply the law.
Right.
And if the
No,
governor and the
absolutely.
mayor refuse, then it has to be the commander in chief.
Yep. And, you wonder about cities like Portland. I've been in and through Portland on several occasions. Of course, that predates when, they had the Summer of Love and decided to burn the place down.
Was there ever a worse name?
Oh, it's just remarkable.
Yeah,
And
that's
then you have
marketing. There's your
yeah,
marketing.
you have politicians standing there going, well, there's not a damn thing wrong in Portland. It's just absolutely lovely. People are riding their bikes. They're going on
Nice stuff.
picnics.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sitting there going, my God, do you actually believe this crap? And you expect people to believe what you're saying. And if I lived in Portland, I'd be yelling and screaming, or I wouldn't be living in Portland. I'd move someplace else.
Yeah, and my brother did. He moved out of Seattle, had a great place there, and they drove
Did
it
he?
to hell. But if he's not lying, if he's telling the truth, then David, he's admitting to a dereliction of his first duty
Yeah,
as
exactly.
mayor or as governor
Yeah,
or as the
exactly.
chief of police or as the chief of police or the DA. you want to, whomever of these persons are supposed to be abiding the first line of our Constitution, and they don't.
What are your thoughts around why they're not handcuffing a Pritzker or any of these other politicians? I fail to understand. To me, it seems pretty simple that, like I said, they're running cover, but we're not. All we're doing is we're talking about it. Congress. You know, Elon Musk, and I'm going to jump way off field here, but Musk did the whole Doge thing, and Congress is like slow walking, codifying all of the work that the Doge team did when they literally went out and saved the country $1 trillion in waste and fraud and everything else. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But our politicians, and I think this whole idea about people on the street going, what the hell? Just like I said, they uncovered all of this stuff, but our politicians are just slow walking the whole thing.
I think, there could be another civil case for citizens to sue a governor or to sue a mayor for dereliction of duty that resulted in harm to their business, harm to their family, harm to themselves. There's also a case, if we're paying taxes, shouldn't we be protected? Why are we paying taxes for you to protect a drug operation, a
Right.
prostitution ring, a gang?
Exactly.
Why are you protecting them and you're not protecting us? We're the ones paying the taxes. And it seems to me that, it would open up a whole slew of rightful civil lawsuits against persons like this. I mean, how about owning a piece of property in a city that gets looted by a gang and then there's no protection on the street? What's the value of that property? What's the value of the business? And that should be a real harm that the court recognized.
Yeah, I would agree. It's funny, Richard. The other day, I reread the essay by Sumner, The Forgotten Man, that he wrote in 1880, 1883, somewhere back then, and it's just remarkable that he basically put his finger right on what Trump realized is going on in this country, relative to the middle class and everything else. And I probably there's a lot of people out there that haven't read The Forgotten Man, but I would encourage you to go out and surf the internet. It's not very long. I think it's only like a 10-page essay or something like that, but it actually demonstrates the demise of the poor guy caught in the middle, this pulling the wagon that everybody wants to keep throwing crap into and expect him to keep pulling, right?
Right. And very true, because power, and this is a lot of what my second volume, Shadows of the Acropolis, is about. It's about how power has concentrated into one city, Washington, D.C., and all the wealth and power of our country is stowed there. And when you have a collection of persons that all live in one city and control all the wealth and power, they tend to forget who's living in Wyoming. They tend to think that they can do whatever they want and tell that farmer in Wyoming he can go to hell rather than complain.
Well, and quite frankly, they do in so many
They do.
words, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
they're pretty explicit and well, quite frankly, it raises itself to an interesting level of arrogance that they think that
Really
they're
does.
that they're the sharpest knife in the drawer,
Well,
which
look at Schumer. He
oh yeah.
demands to be the sharpest knife in the drawer, and he's an idiot.
Yeah, that's what just perplexes the hell out of me. And then you have, the squad, which, you have somebody that was a barista 3 years ago. It's now all of a sudden some kind of a political genius. And it's not to disparage people that build coffee in the morning, but I just don't see how she raised herself intellectually to the point of where I would put her in the same class as like a Gore Vidal or somebody that actually had a command, you know, uh,
Well, if you
of
listen to
this.
her speak for more than 15 seconds, you get a real clear idea of how smart she is.
Well, yeah, it's like listening to Kamala Harris.
Exactly. And no, but It really, but it is an aspect of democracy that you get what you vote for. And if New Yorkers keep voting Hakeem Jeffries in, Chuck Schumer in, Ocasio-Cortez into office, they're getting what they deserve. God, if they let Mondami be the
My,
mayor of New York City, it will take the whole city and state burning down for New York to change their mind, which I find that really hard.
I, yeah, I do too. Which kind of brings me to my question of your view on the status of our republic at this point, because you've done all the work on, the DNA of democracy and then volume 2 on the Acropolis. I'm not having a real optimistic outlook, Richard. I just
Well, I think there's a reason for both to be pessimistic and optimistic.
yeah,
I started this work 10 years ago in the middle of the Obama administration because you and I both witnessed when the IRS started
yeah,
attacking conservative Tea Party organizations,
yeah.
or when the HHS sued the Little Sisters of the Poor and took their money because they didn't allow abortifacients to be dispensed at their hospitals. These sorts of things, when I saw it happening, I said, I don't think anybody really knows what's going on here, but it's becoming more and more pervasive. And then I found out about how the FBI was surveilling Cheryl Atkinson, and she was a hero of mine as a journalist. And these things all combining, I said, somebody has to educate the public as to what this is. And what it is what I call the fang and the claws of socialism. Is what socialism becomes when they have all that wealth and power in one place, and you have an administrative state that you control, and the Democrat Party does. It's the unenumerated power of that part of government. And then Obama can start manipulating who can exist as an association. He can say, I want the IRS to go after the Tea Party movement until they cease to exist. I want monitoring of reporters until they all write what I want them to write, or I'll have them fired at CBS. Right? And this is how they operate. And that is
Well,
not America. That is, but on the optimistic side, you have Trump. How much did this guy put up with? But he
my
is our
God.
president now, and he has turned the tide somewhat, but we have to bring in the education behind it, demonstrate this is why Trump went through all of this. This is why conservatives go through all of this. This is why there's violence against churches. This is why they hate our heroes. This is why they're burning flags. It's because they are our polar opposites, and they want authoritarian government, which is diametrically opposite to our Constitution.
Absolutely. And the only thing that concerns me is when Trump steps away, the force of his personality, which, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of all of the good things that have been going on are sheer Trump personality. This is who he is. He's running the country the way he
Yeah,
runs his real estate and everything. This is his core, right? It is his character.
it's
It's
character.
his character. And that's somebody after him steps into that void with that same dynamic. It,
Yeah,
or we're going to seep right back into the primordial ooze that is Washington, D.C. again, right?
the quicksand,
Yeah, exactly.
which seizes all the virtues from people, and
It sucks the life out of everybody.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm really hopeful about several of the
We got a good bench.
yeah, man.
We've
I
got
think
a good bench.
JD Vance is tremendous and stands his ground, no matter
We've got
who's
a
on.
good bench. Rubio's done a hell of a great job. Vance is doing. I truly believe DeSantis in Florida, Ramaswamy, who will take the reins in Ohio. I think we've got a hell of a good bench.
Did you see Pam Bondi?
Yes, I did, and I set up my desk, and I almost wanted to get a bowl of popcorn because it was just so great watching her.
Rewind that. Let me
Yeah,
rewind that again.
exactly. I want to replay. I want to see if that guy actually crossed the goal line. No,
Ah,
she just it was fabulous.
rip them up, and
Yeah.
right. But with
Yeah.
I think you'll agree, David, with conviction of her being right. She
Yeah,
knew
I
he
mean,
was right,
yeah.
and you're not gonna take flack from Schiff, who lies for a living. I don't think I don't think he's capable of telling the truth.
Well, it was like her sitting there looking at Blumenthal going, you SOB, you sat there and lied getting yourself into the Senate over your military history and everything
Which
else.
does not have.
Right. Yeah. Well, that wasn't the question. Well, you're calling my ethics, blah, blah, blah. And it was fabulous. Like I said, I
Yeah,
wanted to get a bowl of popcorn and
but
sit there.
that's why I am gone from being literally when Obama was elected for the second time, I couldn't sleep. That whole night, I could not sleep. But when Trump was elected this second time, I couldn't sleep again, but it was from euphoria.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No
knowing that,
kidding.
that this would follow and that his second term would be very well informed by his first, and he wouldn't take any crap. He'd get all the right people, and he
Oh,
had.
Richard, I've been following politics ever since the Goldwater campaign. And I can't think of a cabinet that has been constructed and implemented with the kind of individuals that Trump put in there. In all of the presidencies that I've lived through, I have never seen a cabinet with this level of intellect,
Yeah,
commitment, passion for the country, just right on down the line. I just have not seen it.
and I think it's another extension of Trump's character.
I do
He
too.
he
I
chooses
do too.
people that he can talk to and understand them and respect them.
Yeah.
And persons that don't meet his level, I think are, like in the first term, how many people came and went? Because he
Yeah.
literally couldn't count on them. He couldn't deal with them because they'd
No.
say one thing and do another, like Jeff Sessions or
Yeah.
people
I
like
you
that.
know, I think he did 4 years worth of daily homework,
Yeah.
day in and day out, preparing himself for the second run because there is nobody that outworks him. Nobody. And I can't think of a
I don't know how
president.
he does it.
I don't either. And God bless him. I mean, that man is like he's hammering it down, and
Those
it's
close
great
to him
for
call him the machine.
yeah.
He's
Well,
the machine. So God bless him.
yep. We've been talking to Richard Lyons, author of the book The DNA of Democracy and the Shadows of the Acropolis. And as always, sir, it has been an extraordinary pleasure of mine to have you on and talk to you. It's just been great.
Same here, David. Really
Uh,
enjoyed it.
so what's next? What's going on with you?
I have a compilation of articles called Passages Through the Shadows. So what this is, it's articles written for different publications about the day-to-day events. It's the battlefield we're on today. So it covers all subjects from the Middle East to inner city crime and all that, and where the left and the right are fighting every day and why. Because it
Yeah.
goes to the first two volumes, which spell out the
Okay.
why. And then I'll be starting the fourth volume here shortly. And that's all about how we as a society with our human nature involved with government and how it makes, there are tendencies in human nature which want tyranny, which want the comfort of socialism. And there's other people of our character who want all the freedom you can get,
Well, we're
right?
scared to yeah, we're scared to death, Richard, of being responsible, right? We're
Yeah,
we're scared to we're scared to death that our decision making could be good or bad. And what the hell happens if it's bad? Will I recover? So on and so forth. So we kind of get into lockup on around it, and we want somebody else to make the damn decision so we don't have to be responsible for a bad one.
now, well, let me just point out if we have 1 minute. During the 1960s, everything we heard in the music and everything about the culture was anti establishment, right? And that generation wanted to do everything about freeing the human spirit, freeing society. But it's always easiest to say, okay, we agree. Let the government do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Yeah, yeah.
generation That generation created the biggest administrative state of any nation on earth.
Well,
To
because they
you
absolved themselves of that responsibility, right?
exactly. They handed it off and said, "Look, you know what we want, you do it." You know,
Yeah, exactly. I don't have time for it. You go do it.
right?
Yeah. And
And
then
then you're
20
giving
years
them
later, they're
rights.
going, yeah,
You're
they're
giving
going,
them
oh,
right.
shit, look what happened. You know, how do I undo this?
But
You
these are
know,
the socialists of the present day. And
right. Exactly.
they think socialism is somehow liberating when in fact it is the
Oh, no,
opposite. It's
no,
imprisonment.
it's absolutely, I mean, yeah, it's going to end up, be careful what you wish for,
Yeah.
because it's not going to be pretty, not going to be pretty at all.
Yeah. Watch New
Um,
York.
yeah, exactly. Well, Richard, like I said, thanks for your time, sir. And I wish you well. And we'll have you back on as soon as we can. When's the volume 4 due?
Well, it's going to take some time. It'll be a year and
Okay.
a half, 2 years.
Oh no, I'm not going to wait that
These
damn
things
long.
these
I'm not going to wait that damn long. No, we'll have you back on, and we'll talk some more as things have progressed.
That
All
sounds great, David. Sounds great.
right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good
Bye.
night now.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to more Clarity from Chaos shows on demand, go to clarityfromchaos.buzzsprout.com or send Dave an email at info@clarityfromchaos.com for information on previous shows. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Twitter, or Google Podcast. Until next time, please remember, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Be well, everyone.